It is a important day today at Good Shepherd. So I think we'll get right to it. So what time is it? It's time for Good Morning,
Good Shepherd, yes.
I will tell you that I think sometimes people wonder if the clergy listen. Trust me, we do listen.
What was that, Ted?
And what we have been hearing so much of late, and justifiably so, is how much we have missed in-person worship.
Right.
How painful that has been. And in truth, in particular, because other congregations have been back to in-person worship. So that has made it even more difficult. It has been, I think we are 1 week from hitting the 1-year anniversary of when all of this, when our lives changed. What I am pleased to say today is that we'll be going back to in-person worship next Sunday. Now, not all the details have been worked out. We just were able to get some final approvals from the diocese, which is working with us. I want you to understand, I know sometimes people have seen the diocese as the bad guy, the pandemic police that has been our nemesis at times. Please understand that everything that the bishop has done, he's been doing what he has felt was for the benefit of our parishioners and of our community. But he also wants to work with us. So I can tell you a few things about in-person worship that I think is going to make people pleased. First and foremost, we're going to be able to have up to 100 people here. And we're going to be able to do that because the bishop has given us permission to use the parish house for 50 people and the church building itself for another 50. And that required some working to get that done, because that had ordinarily been said no to other congregations. But we have been blessed with a physical plant that we can totally separate these two. It's almost as if we're two different churches on next Sunday morning. And that's where you're going to be getting some more details, because to get this done, we had to assure the bishop that we could make sure that the 50 in the good church and the 50 in the parish house don't start mixing either before or after the service. We're going to have a nursery, but the nursery is going to be only for people in the parish house, because we can't have people coming from the church through the parish house to the nursery. But for those families with young children who need the nursery, we will have service. We can also, our service can be up to an hour long, whereas before it was substantially limited. So it can look a lot more like our regular service. Is it going to be the same? Not quite. We can have music. We can't have congregational singing. We can have a soloist, or what they call a pod in the... I bet you Jim never thought about his choir as a pod.
The pod people.
Right. But I think we should be very... Ted's worked very hard to work with the bishop. And going back to what you said about the diocese, everything that they did based on science and working not only with medical and public health people, but in talking with people in the Atlanta diocese, Bishop Wright up there. And so they have been very, our health has been their major concern, but thank you, Ted, for forging forward with getting us back into the church.
For instance, our bishop hasn't been relying upon articles in the newspaper. He's certainly not been relying upon social media. He's not been relying upon the talking heads on television. He's actually been in communication with the president or director of the National Institutes of Health. I mean, he has gone to the absolute top authorities in the country. He and our Bishop Wright, the Bishop of the Diocese of Atlanta, have been working together and have been dealing with literally the highest authorities. Mm-hmm. And I know that other people haven't come to the same conclusion, but as for me, and when it's my health and the health of my community, I'm going to tend to listen to the best experts in the country,
Right.
rather than even listening to my own opinions. So please stay tuned. We're going to be sending out some stuff, because it's going to be a little bit of a trick on Sunday morning. We've got to use 2 different parking lots. Parking lot right in front of the parish house for the people coming to the parish house. Parking lot in front of the Episcopal Day School for those coming to the church. Have we figured out how exactly we're going to get people parked in the right place? No, we haven't. But we will be working on it this week.
Pillar of fire will appear in the parking lot and lead you to your place.
One thing that would, I guess, be good to say here is that please, when you do come, try to follow the instructions that you're given as far as staying in the separated areas and not visiting in the parking lots, because this has been a lot of hard work to get this set up by Ted, and we don't want to overstep any boundaries that we have been that have been defined for us. So.
It would be a shame if we get this permission and then we lose it because we don't abide by the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that would happen, but it's possible that could happen if we don't. We've promised the bishop that we would do these things, and we intend to keep it. But I say, we've been hearing from you all. By the way, thank you all who responded to the survey regarding online worship. Although I will admit that it turns out we get the information back from you all just as we're able to go back to in-person.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, if anything were to happen, heaven forbid that it would, if we have to stop on in-person worship, your responses have been very helpful to us. We'll be able to do a better job. Of course, what was the number one response about our online worship? We want to go back to in-person.
No, it's not like church.
That's right.
And as you said, it's not going to be like it used to be, but someday it will. So this is just sort of whetting our appetite for getting
That's right.
back to the...
We're going to get close.
Yeah.
We're going to get close, but not quite. Whetting our appetite and looking forward to vaccinations.
Got mine last week.
I've had mine too. On this coming Tuesday, I'm good to go.
And I'm a mere child. And I
Oh,
don't qualify.
please.
Some of us tried to argue that clergy were somehow either first responders or caregivers or whatever.
It does count in the new B1, clergy and educators. So
All right.
Oh.
So Ted
like,
gets
as
one.
leaders of congregations, so ministers.
Oh, that's news.
That's the way I read it. Somebody out there might correct me, but that's what I heard.
Well, that would be good news. I would be happy.
I looked that up.
I will absolutely take the vaccine, whichever one they have available,
Yeah.
at the first opportunity. No questions asked.
Well,
Has anybody ever, I'm curious, how many people have read in the Book of Wisdom? Actually, it's in the Apocrypha.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not in the Old Testament or the New Testament, it's in the Apocrypha. And there's a wonderful passage in the Book of Wisdom. And when it talks about the need to listen to, it says physicians, in other words, the healthcare experts. And it says that you listen to them because what they know is a gift from God.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're listening to them, you are receiving God's gift. It doesn't have to always happen through some miracle. It can happen through the education of our healthcare professionals, our scientists, our epidemiologists. So they say take the vaccine. For most of us, some people cannot, but for most of us, take it.
Yeah. It's not, I had very little, I mean, I didn't even feel the shot either time. The first time my arm wasn't even sore. The second time I got a little tired and had a slight little fever, but it It's better than getting COVID, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
A whole lot better.
Yeah.
Two things else, just as sort of Good Morning, Good Shepherd today is a little bit of an informational session. The women in the choir have prepared a sung Compline service. And starting tonight at 7 o'clock, it will be on the church's YouTube channel. Maybe on Facebook too. I think they're working on that. Roger says yes, it will be. And it is a wonderful piece that you can use as a devotion daily. You can use at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And what a gift by the choir members to have done that. And we give thanks to Roger for editing it, for Jim Nord making sure that we have it. So that's something else for you all for Lent. And the last thing I want to do from an announcement standpoint, there have been some developments in the church, and I'm not really at liberty to say what they are, but I will tonight at 5:30. On your email on Friday, you should have gotten an email that would have given you the link. And if possible, I will have another email come out this afternoon with that link. But I would invite you to tune in at 5:30 to hear what has occurred in that congregation. Anything else on the way of news? News about any of our parishioners? Andy?
Well, we want to remember Mary, Neal, and Lee. Mary, I believe, had a little touch of pneumonia, and she has been in University Hospital. I took her communion the other night. She was doing well. Misses everybody, of course, as everybody says that to me, and I miss you all too. And then Terry Arliss is recovering from a heart attack and from COVID. So I stopped by and took her and her daughter a big bowl of my beef stew. As far as I know, they're still alive.
You forgot to drop by my house with some of that beef stew.
So anyway, just out there among folks, checking on people. And y'all have anything?
Yeah,
Anybody?
Joe Bailey was in the hospital. He is now back at home with his page. And y'all please continue to call us with concerns. And also, if you know someone who needs a call from us or something like that. I've actually this week gotten several emails and phone calls thanking us for the notes that we've been sending to people who, who've been in the hospital or at home ill or have had a death in the family, that sort of thing. So actually a written note now I think is like a Christmas present. We don't usually write handwritten notes that much, so it's almost like, or like finding an Easter egg in your mailbox.
Well, that's so wonderful. You can keep it right there at your table or bedside, and wow, these people thought enough to write me.
Well, that's right. We all sign them, and that lets you know that you are in our thoughts and prayers. So please continue to send those to us.
Let us know. And by the way, I found out just this week that University Hospital has changed its visitation policy, and the clergy can now visit at least some of the patients, maybe not all, but many of the patients can be visited, and we don't count against their limit on visitors.
Okay, good.
Because for a while, when they opened visitation, you can only have one visitor a day, and we've really hesitated to go see somebody when a family member or somebody may not be able then to go visit. But as it stands right now, of course, all these things are fluid. They can change. But please let us know if someone's in the hospital. I can't speak to the other hospitals right now what their policy is, but I know that at university we can now go see you, and we would like to do so.
I would suggest that you check with the hospital if any of you go, because the visiting hours have changed.
Oh, yeah.
So I got in to see Mary, even though it was an hour after. So I thought visitation ended at 7. University ends at 6. So I had my collar on and my little communion box, and I told the sweet lady at the front desk I was on a mission from God. And she made one swift phone call, and I was admitted back, had a grand time with Mary. But they could have said no.
That's right.
So check, and a lot of places too, limit the number of visitors. So don't take 4 or 5 people up to see somebody, because that's probably not going to happen.
University right now is 2.
Yeah.
That's 2 per day, not 2 at
No,
one time.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and remember too, when people are in the hospital, they're there to try
Recover.
to get better,
Right.
and so they don't really need to be holding court, entertaining a lot
No,
of
that's
people. So
And the hospitals have a very different feel. It's almost surreal when you go into them, because you don't see droves of people. The lobbies are emptied of chairs. There's nowhere to sit in the lobby because they don't want people congregating. But it's run very efficiently and very wisely, it has been my opinion.
And we want to get back to being able to extend that pastoral care
Yes.
of being with people in the hospital. Doesn't mean that we stay a long time. Sometimes it might be, but many times it can be a very brief visit. But that now has been at least partially opened back up to us, but it doesn't do us any good if we don't know someone's in the hospital.
right, yeah.
And if you do tell us that someone's in the hospital, please tell us which one.
Yes.
And if you have a room number, please give us that room number.
Which person and which hospital?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
person and which hospital. And that would be great, and make sure they're still there.
Yeah, you learn very quickly when you start visiting people to call before you
Yes.
go, because I think I went to the hospital one time and then realized I needed to call to make sure that the people are still there.
I've learned the lesson. I've called and they're still there, and I get there an hour later and they've
They're
been
gone.
discharged. I've made many a pointless visit to a hospital, but I try to keep those to a minimum.
Yeah. Question?
Ashley brought up the Pendleton King Service Day yesterday.
All right.
We're having those every Saturday from 10 until 2 if you want to talk. Just announce that, I guess.
All right. Is it every Saturday?
In March.
Every Saturday in March, there is a work day at Pendleton King Park. We had, how many people was it yesterday?
15 people.
15 people showed up. Youth.
On our side, there
Yeah.
was 30 total.
Oh, so we had half the people. Wow. Go, Good Shepherd.
That's right. And every Saturday in March, it's a wonderful way to get out. Now, I will say this for somebody who was also outside yesterday, doing it yesterday in the cold drizzle, you have my great admiration. I was out for a few hours and I thought, oh, it wasn't the best day, but we'll have some very good Saturdays in March. And that's, always remember, on the night before he died, Jesus said this. He said, I came to serve and not to be served. And he called us to the same mission. And he wasn't just talking about the people who wear white dog collars.
Kills fleas for 6 months.
That's what it's worked so far. I think I've been bitten by a few things wearing this collar, but there haven't been any fleas. Might have been a human or two.
I want to say we care so much about you all, but under the circumstances that we're in, it really aids us in ministering to you if you keep us apprised of needs or illness and so forth, because then we can better do our ministry. We need you.
Yeah. And before, when we were all in the parish house having coffee between services or people having breakfast, people would just, oh yeah, let me tell you so-and-so who's in the hospital or whatever. And we don't have that way of communicating now. But if we follow the rules, maybe we'd get back to that fairly soon.
We have a question, I think.
No, it's just Joan O'Connor received a prayer shawl this week. She was so blessed by it, and talked to the person who knitted it, and just how great a gift that was from the church. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, if you didn't hear, Roger, one of our parishioners, Joan O'Connor, received a prayer shawl, and how much that meant to her. That's another thing. The prayer shawl ministry is a wonderful ministry. And I have, back in Darien, we also had a prayer shawl ministry. And I will tell you, at first I thought, this is a nice thing. It's nice. But I had no idea how important it was, first to the people who received them, and secondly to the people who made them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It is a wonderful ministry on both ends. And if you know anybody who you think that might benefit from a prayer shawl, please let us know.
Well, prayers are said as they knit
As they
them.
knit.
And so, and they know who they're knitting that particular prayer shawl for. The other piece that the prayer shawl ministry does is they make these little tiny prayer shawl things.
Like a finger stole.
Right, yeah. And so you can get those for somebody who's just maybe going through a hard time. I had a friend when they were getting ready to start their discernment process. I gave one to them because I knew they were getting ready to have a hard time at that point. It's not all easy. Okay?
You just shattered Roger's hope.
That's right.
For those who don't know what Buddy's referring to, that's the discernment process to discern whether you may be called into the ordained ministry.
Right. Yes, that's right. Well,
And let me add one other thing to that. Shout out, first of all, to Carol Bennett and her
Yes.
prayer shawl people, but also to Mary Gale and Altar Guild, who take flowers from the altar, and the note that accompanies those flowers as it goes to people is wonderful. You know, these flowers grace the altar of Good Shepherd. They heard the prayers and so forth and so on. And we're thinking of you. I'm paraphrasing all that. But I've heard from people who've gotten prayer shawls, flowers from the altar. It means something. It's Episcopalians understand very well that sometimes we do things, we call it ritual, that says more than words can say.
right.
So getting those things is very important to people. My brother, when he was being treated for his multiple myeloma, he kept that prayer shawl on him day and night. I finally had to take it from him to clean it. But, those things mean a great deal.
Well, Yvonne Harrison did one for me when Pat was ill, and that also forms even a more special bond between Yvonne and me. I've always loved her and thought she was a wonderful person, and I was a lay reader under her. But knowing that she took the time to spend doing that for me was, I mean, it's very special.
Can I shift gears for a minute?
You may.
Please do.
I'm going to give you an update on Bishop Zach in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
He's been able to pay for his eye surgery, but the surgery has not occurred yet. It will, because the medical people in Kenya went on strike because they weren't getting the vaccine. So doctors and nurses went on strike in Kenya and has delayed everything. Food prices there have tripled. Fuel has quadrupled. They're having a really hard time. In his area, if you get 1 to 2 meals a day, you're doing well. So just remember Bishop Zach and Catherine. He sent me pictures this week, which I sent some to y'all. They literally woke up one morning and there was road equipment outside the edge of the school property. They were widening the road. No announcement. They damaged some of the buildings and walls. No compensation.
Did they encroach on the property
yes,
at all?
They did. Here we are. And there's nothing you can do about that in Kenya. Nothing. So remember them. They struggle so much, and we take for granted our lifestyles and the way we live. The Kenyan Fund still exists. Please don't forget them. They need what we can do for them. So I would appreciate that very much.
Yep.
Yvonne says, "Thank you, Bunny. I love you too." I don't know if they heard me say that.
Roger said that Yvonne just called and thanked us for.
Thanked Bunny. Let's get really specific here. Thank
Ted
Bunny.
and I had nothing to do with knitting the prayer shawl.
I love Bunny.
That's right. She loves Bunny, doesn't love us.
Y'all better get busy on a prayer shawl for these two.
I think we need more help than that.
I need a prayer blanket.
One time I was going to crochet or knit or something. I don't even know what you call it. An Afghan for Mom and Daddy, and I started it one Christmas. and it was about this big, and I worked on it, and for about 2 years later, it was this big, and I just gave it to him in a box. I said, put it on your feet. I was just, so I could not join the prayer shawl ministry unless they made me in charge of those little
You
ones.
said earlier about pocket prayer shawls.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pocket prayer shawls. I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Mom would help you, but she gave up knitting for Lent.
But I want to add on to what Andy has said. We so easily forget how the vast majority of us at Good Shepherd, I'm not going to say everyone, but the vast majority of people at Good Shepherd have been incredibly blessed. Yes, we have difficulties, we have challenges, but you don't have to spend much time in a third world country before you will be you'll be awed by what they have to put up with, and you will be immeasurably more thankful for the blessings that you have received and so easily take for granted. Folks, it is it's humbling. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It's humbling. And we need to always remember how blessed we are. It's easy to forget living where we do.
And because we have been blessed, more is expected of us. And Good Shepherd, I think, responds to the call, but we can always do more, always.
Well, it's kind of amazing to associate with someone who lives in a third world country. I remember I was taking Zach with me, actually, on a hospital visit down to university one day. Someone he knew, and so we were going down to visit them. And he looked at me and said, Andy, there are no poor people in America. He said, come to Kenya. You will see poverty. And so to get the look of someone who lives outside our society, and they are very aware that we are greatly blessed. But being a Christian, and Bunny, I echo what you said, being a Christian, we're always called to not let things own us, we own our things. And then we operate out of gratitude because we have an abundance. I mean, first time I took him to an American grocery store, he looked and said, all this food in one place?
Wow.
So we don't think about that, but boy, they do. They do. So remember our folks who are working overseas in different places, and we've had now almost a 21-year relationship with Bishop Zach in Kenya. And Good Shepherd has the footprint of Good Shepherd is heartily stamped in Kenya.
And I tell you, being in the presence of Catherine and Bishop Zach is, you could just see Christ in them. And they are so thankful, and so, I mean, they love God so much. They do.
Well, Zach will tell you, God is all they have to go to.
Yeah.
Government doesn't help you. Government's not there to help you. It's there to take from you. And God is their first and last resort. There's no in between.
You will frequently find a much greater reliance on faith in third world countries because they aren't tempted to think that they are in charge of their own fate like we are. We think, as long as I work hard, everything's going to work out just fine. It doesn't work out that way in most of the world.
And they don't have the distractions that we have,
That's right.
you know, either. So
I had the pleasure of spending 3 weeks in Canterbury studying with mostly priests from Africa. And what I saw they had to deal with was phenomenal. One fellow, as we were leaving, trying to get email addresses, can I email you and keep in touch? And he looked at me and he says, we don't have electricity.
Right.
gosh.
Yeah. The idea of the computer was just not in the cards. We have hit 9 o'clock. I hope that you all will join us at 9:15 for our live stream. And be on the lookout. If you can't find your email, be on the lookout for another email. Hopefully we'll get it out today about a meeting at 5:30. And don't forget, the Compline is now available on YouTube. Excuse me. As of 7 o'clock tonight, it will be available for you on YouTube and Facebook.
Thank you, Roger.